footage, history, and coffee.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us again. Today we're going to show you how to set up Lineside.
We'll also talk about South Africa's railway history around Durban and show you how to make railway coffee. Let's start the kettle.
Whilst the kettle's boiling, let's head on down to Mooirivier and set up Lineside. Welcome to Mooirivier, Potchefstroom. Sadly, the kettle was still boiling, so no coffee for this trip. This area may look familiar to you, and that is because we looked at it in the first episode on Open Railway Maps, as well as Google Maps. This is a peaceful family suburb close to the university and about a kilometer south of Potchefstroom Dam. The line we are setting up to photograph forms part of the double-track main line between Vereniging and Klerksdorp. Setting up Lineside is all about your intentions, such as if you want to follow a train, or in this case, sit and watch different trains passing through. Because this is located further north in Potchefstroom, it takes quite a bit of time to exit the area and catch up to the line. As such, you will often miss the train in either directions if you choose to follow the train. What is great about this location is that the light is perpendicular to the bridge, meaning that the train running in either direction will be bathed in sunlight. Coupled to that, the bridge makes for an interesting composition, with trees either side framing the locomotives. Firstly, I look for a suitable spot to set up. Keeping in mind that this could take quite a while, I set up in the cool shade of the park. Today, I would like to try something a bit different, incorporating the trees as the main subject and the train as a secondary subject in my photograph. For most of my Lineside shots, including this one, I used my kit lens, an 18 to 55mm lens. This will help to get a nice wide shot of the scene. But I also believe the best zoom you can have for your camera are your legs. Don't be afraid to walk around and see different compositions. Next, with my composition sorted, I set up my camera, getting the correct exposure, as well as shutter speed and aperture. With sunlight illuminating my subject, the train should be passing any time now. Really, it should be any minute now. Man, some coffee would have been great. And just like that, when all hope was gone, here come two Transnet Class 18Es and their container train heading east. As you can see, in the life of a train spotter, patience is a virtue.
Whilst the kettle is still boiling, let's step back in time for a bit of history. 161 years ago, in 1860, on Tuesday, 26 June, engine fitter, driver, and locomotive superintendent Henry Jacobs had a locomotive build up enough steam pressure. The wheels started turning and the first official train journey on South African soil had commenced. The first trip between Marketplace and the Point took around 5 minutes. It is interesting to note that by the time the locomotive arrived in Durban, the railway had already been in use for some time, initially the wagons being hauled by oxen. 5 years later, a second locomotive was acquired, named Durban. By January 1867, the line had only been extended by 5.6 kilometers to Mgeni, where stone quarried from the Mgeni River was transported to the harbour. Since the first official journey, it took 15 years before the governor of the colony of Natal, Sir Henry Bulwer, ceremonially turned the first sod at Durban, which would begin the construction of the railway into the interior of the country. KwaZulu Natal's topography presented serious problems. Between Durban and Pietermaritzburg, the line had to traverse a series of hills and valleys. At 13 kilometers from the bay, the line would have reached an altitude of 343 meters and rise again by 335 meters over the next 11 kilometers. The highest point between Durban and Pietermaritzburg was 982 meters, only 56 kilometers from Durban. On 1 January 1877, the government took over the point line, and by May 1878, the gauge was reduced from standard gauge to Cape gauge. On 4 September 1878, the first 27 kilometers of the line was opened as far as Pinetown. The next 23 kilometers, as far as Botha's Hill, was commissioned on 1 September 1879. The hilly terrain between Pinetown and Nchanga Hotel needed extensive earthworks. The engineers had to keep within the budget and therefore avoided expensive tunnels and bridges, instead following the contours of the hills. Local rock was not suitable to build stone bridges, therefore iron bridges were used. In time, these proved to be unfit and had to be replaced. Of these, the 173-meter-long Nchanga Viaduct became the most famous. All passengers were required to walk across the viaduct to reduce the weight of the train. In windy conditions, the viaduct moved so much that trains could not cross it. Considerable agitation from the public caused the 27 kilometers between Botha's Hill and Camperdown to be brought into service on 1 October 1880, 7 months after the completion of the viaduct. On 21 October 1880, the rails reached Pietermaritzburg, although much of the ballast work was still unfinished. The opening ceremony was arranged for 1 December 1880. On this day, Kitson-built engine number 12 left Durban with some 90 guests in 5 brand new coaches and a guard's van. An excited crowd welcomed the first train into Pietermaritzburg, and Governor George Pomeroy Colley formally declared the railway open. In spite of the festivities and grand opening, the line was only completely opened for all traffic on 1 March 1881. The various iron bridges had to be replaced when they could not stand the test of time. A deviation around Nchanga Viaduct and Wallerstown Halt was opened on 24 April 1892, and the viaduct was dismantled in 1897. In 1914, electric traction was considered for the Durban-Pietermaritzburg section, and after the First World War it was again recommended by consulting engineers. However, by this time the alternative line between Rosberg and Cato Ridge was nearing completion, and authorities hoped this would solve the capacity problems, while it was also argued that it was too risky to experiment with the first electric locomotives on such an important line. Today, the old main line has since been de-electrified between Pinetown and Cato Ridge, and trains are diesel-hauled. There are currently regular steam trips by the Mgeni Steam Railway. That's the history done. Let's get to the coffee.
A few moments later.
Well, wasn't that the longest kettle boil in history? Leave a comment down below and tell us what beverage you take with you when you go lineside.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Like and subscribe for more. The signals that proceed.
The platform is clear.
You may depart.